Welcome to the Rogue Startups Podcast, where two startup founders are sharing lessons learned and pitfalls to avoid in their online businesses. And now, here's Dave and Craig.
Hello, welcome to episode 279 of Rogue Startups. I'm your host, Craig Hewitt, here with Dave Rodenbaugh. Dave, how's it going this week?
Oh, it's going fan-frickin-tastic. In fact, Sunday at the Denver Coliseum, there's going to be a monster truck rally. When did we become announcers like that?
When did we start doing this? Well, you know what I've realized is like, you can get on and say, oh, this is episode 279 in Rogue Startups, and I'm Craig, and it's boring. Like people, like if you ever listen back to it, you're like, the fuck is this guy? Like, and why should I care?
Yeah. And it also sounds like you just drank a gallon of chamomile tea or you're, you know.
Yeah. Or on something a little stronger.
Some illicit substance we won't mention on the wave over the air here in fear of the DEA, but yeah.
There may be some that mock us, and there will be many more, I think, that appreciate our energy and pizzazz. And that's what we're trying to bring, Dave. We're trying to bring some energy to startups because the shit's hard sometimes, and we want it to be fun.
Oh my God. No kidding on that one. Yeah. If we want to talk about the very first thing that I've been struggling here with the last month, speaking of energy, seasonal affective disorder hits me every year, and I try to combat it in a variety of ways, like, with exercise, and I've done light therapy, and I take St. John's wort, and I do pretty well most of the winter. But man, the last 30 days as spring has been starting up and winter's been winding down, finally fucking hit me. And I felt a major lack of motivation. I was having a hard time getting stuff done. I basically, here's how bad it got. I was actually excited to go downstairs and work on my sump pump more than I was on my business. That's the bottom of the barrel right there. And I brought that up to my mastermind group, and they're like, oh, Jesus, Dave, that's terrible.
Yeah, that's pretty rough.
Yeah, not good. But,
Yeah, I think without getting into it too much, like, I definitely agree. It's interesting, like in France, it was in the fall, like November. It was just like 40 degrees and raining all month usually. Oof. And so that was terrible. Here, it's different, where like February is, just horrendous. We actually had a really mild winter this year, but rethinking a lot of life decisions this time of year with like, how the fuck don't I live in Hawaii? Like, what are we all thinking?
Totally. Yeah. And, it's been pretty bad for my wife this year. She suffers from it too. And for her, it's a little bit different because like she doesn't ski, so she doesn't have that to look forward to in the winter. And she's not doing, the conference that I do in February with Big Snow. So she doesn't have that to look forward to. So, we realized that we need to start planning some winter trips, at least 2 of them, to get the hell out of Dodge and improve both of our outlook on this, because it's not good for, she needs something to look forward to. Both of us need the sun and the warmth. Winter is just not agreeing with us anymore. So, fuck winter.
Yep. Yeah, we did not leave here all winter. We stayed here for Christmas, and my folks came up winter break. We stayed here and went skiing, and then we are leaving Sunday, this Sunday, so Easter, for spring break, going to Florida to see my mother-in-law. So that'll be nice, but it's almost spring here. It'll be like 65 degrees on Thursday, so the worst of it is over. But yeah, it's just tough. And I think the moral of the story, instead of just Dave and I bitching, which we're excellent at, is if you're in a place that has actual seasons and you realize that, man, I feel like shit in, November or December or March or whatever, you're not alone. It's totally normal. Move to somewhere with more sunshine and it'll go away. Or just, like you're saying, take vacation and go somewhere warm for as long as you can, and your life will be better. So,
and if any of our listeners have a house in Hawaii that they'd like to rent to us, please contact us.
Yep.
We, either of us, just send it to podcast@roguestartups.com. We'll work it out because let me tell you, we would definitely be open to that. But yeah, definitely not alone out there. Hard time of the year for a lot of us. And it's also just a general hard time being in B2B SaaS right now. I don't know. Did you see that ProfitWell report that came out that talked about growth over the last 15 months for B2B SaaS?
No.
Well, not to further depress you here, but basically Patrick did the survey across, however many tens of thousands of businesses that they have on ProfitWell. And the average growth rate in 2023 so far across all of those business has been net negative. So
awesome.
if you are making any money in your B2B SaaS right now, you're doing so well. Congratulations. High five, because apparently you are bucking the trend and it is rough. It is a rough trend right now. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think we had some tougher months last year. That this year has been pretty good for us so far, actually. So, yeah, but last year was not great. So,
yeah. January was rough. We expected that, though. That wasn't much of a surprise. But February and March have been kind of flat. So, in some ways, I'm kind of happy about that. And we have some marketing campaigns that are still firing off. And, there's lots of room between now and the end of the year to make stuff happen. But I was a little surprised to see that, B2B SaaS in general across the board on so many businesses has been trending down over most of 2022 and hit the negative line in 2023.
Yeah, I'm not surprised at all. I mean, it's what you hear from everybody. And then, shit like SVB goes down and people just get more scared. And I think it's mostly just like a confidence thing. Like, I don't know if we're actually in a recession. Nobody does, I don't think, as of today. Like, I haven't heard, but everybody thinks we are. And so they're just being really conservative with their money. And it's just like, I think people are just uncertain, I don't think things are actually that bad, but when people get uncertain, they stop spending money and stop investing in new stuff. And that's why, I think SaaS is affected by that, because a lot of what we do is somewhat discretionary.
Yeah, it certainly can be. I mean, the closer you get to the money, this is why when I bought Recapture, I wanted it that close to the money, because when a recession hits, we're probably one of the last ones somebody would yank out, unless they had, a duplicate. I've seen that where people are like, oh yeah, we've got Recapture and Klaviyo. I'm like, okay, well, paring down to one tool.
It work with MailChimp or something.
Right.
But
right.
It's not as good, I'm sure.
No, it's not as good of an experience. So it is what it is. And, at least I know what to expect. And I know the farther you get from the money, the easier it is for somebody to cancel and go, well, I just don't need this, because I'm doing that. I'm doing that with specific apps I've got. Anyway, that's a rehash of what we talked about last time. So,
yeah. So what are we talking about this week, man?
Well, I've got a couple of things going on here at Recapture. So I had a really brutal but extremely valuable call with a customer today. So I was sending out, and I don't remember if this was a survey or something else, but this guy sent me this feedback, and he's been a Recapture customer for a couple of years. And he said, yeah, I hate your dashboard. And I was like, oh, okay, what would you like us to change? And he said, well, let's have a call. And I was like, yes, because so many times it's so hard. When I want to schedule calls, it's like pulling teeth to get a customer on the phone sometimes. When they want stuff, get them on the phone, great. That's super easy. But like when you want something, it can be pretty hard, as I'm sure you've experienced as well. So I was like, here's a customer. He's excited to get on the phone. I'm like, yes. So I got on the phone, and literally the guy tore me a new asshole. I mean, it was he did it very respectfully, but it was harsh listening to what he had to say about Recapture. Yeah, he made statements like he hated our UI, and he didn't think that anything on the dashboard was helping him tell how his business was doing or other stuff. And while I'm smarting mentally from all of these comments that he's making here. I'm taking just copious notes because every single thing he was telling me was really super valuable. And he actually showed me an example of something. He's like, hey, here's a dashboard that I think has a lot of valuable information on it. And I'm like, oh my God, you told me what you wanted. And that was pretty awesome. And, I could look at that and go, oh, now I understand. And then I dug deeper with him and was talking about, what does that mean in the context of abandoned carts? Like, what do you want to see here? And, he was telling me about, well, I need to, basically he said, I care about two things. I don't want to lose customers and I want to make more money. So if you have things that are telling me one of those two things, then they're useful to me. I was like, I can work with that. That is amazing. That was a great insight. And, he was saying some other harsh stuff like, I don't feel like there's a big alternative with other solutions in the market that he's in. And he's like, if there was, I would switch immediately because I don't like the experience I'm having here. I'm like, But, he's also a small business founder. So he totally, like I said, he wasn't being harsh about it, but he was being brutal and honest. And he gave me some very good ideas that I haven't heard anybody say in such crystal clear terms. So in many ways, we were planning to redesign the dashboard anyway. So now that I have this crystal clear feedback in there, I'm like, awesome. Now I can rip these things out with some confidence because he told me why the things that are there aren't useful and what would be useful instead. And he was even willing to give me some additional feedback later. So that's cool too. So now I've got somebody I can put like a mock-up in front of and say, this is what we're thinking of. What do you think? And he's also a designer background, so he wasn't a big fan of our material design, but I can't satisfy everything there. We're not changing that one.
I think first of all, like feedback is super important, and like our ability to actually accept it is like maybe even more important, because I think a lot of times like we as founders have to be like hardened against everything that everybody says to keep some kind of focus, right? Otherwise you just be flipping here and there and everywhere after like everything that everybody says. So like I think it's that fine line of like accepting feedback and really embracing and like grokking it with knowing when to tell somebody like, I don't care what you think, like this is the way we're going to do it. I would one thing that you're saying really scares me, which is, and I don't know if this is what you're doing or you were just kind of like oversimplifying, but I would 100% not change anything about what you're doing based on one person's opinion.
Oh, no, that was an oversimplification. I mean, we already knew. So like he was giving me feedback across the entire application about different things. And I was like, okay, I don't know that we're going to rip everything out, but I do know that this one page over here, based on the time that people spend on it, based on the fact that it gets skipped a lot, based on the fact I ask about it and people are like, what's that? Like, I understand this page lacks engagement, it lacks utility, and it very much needs to be improved. And it also is shit on mobile too. So like there's literally everything about this page needs to be upgraded. But, the fact that he was giving me specific feedback about like, here are things that would be useful to me in my business and here's why. Like that is an insight I didn't have before about like, what were the two key things? So now if I use those two key things and be like, now I can put that in front of other customers and say, what do you think about that? But I am, let me make it absolutely clear. I am not rewriting any user interface in Recapture because of this one guy's feedback, but it was super valuable. Yeah.
And I think that's the harder thing in general to me is like, we were talking about it today with the team and, this one experience. And so the recency bias, right? This one experience with this one customer makes you think very naturally that this thing is important. But in reality, it might be the only time all year you hear this thing. But it's got you, it's got your whatever, what's the euphemism? It's got your panties in a wad, or it's got you all riled up about something. And that's like totally natural, but I think it's really important to take a step back and say, like, does the opinion of this type of customer matter to me? Or am I optimizing for something I don't want more of? Right. I'm not saying that's what it was with this guy, but like, that's a question I always ask myself. It's like, am I solving for like a bad customer and a bad customer fit and experience like that? I don't want to do that. Are there other things like this that I consistently hear and that like, that alone kind of graduates it to like, we probably need to solve this. And then like, I mean, I'm a terrible product person. And so like having Francois on our team, who is an amazing product person, has been like life-changing for me and like product changing for the company. And so like, I would just say, Dave, like if you have any question about like making these decisions, like getting someone who is a good UX designer to help you make these decisions, even if you're a good product person, I think opens your eyes to options and opportunities that like you might not see,
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I would consider myself a pretty decent product person. I mean, that's a lot of what I used to do as part of my job in engineering, architecture, development, et cetera. But, UX, that has changed so much, and it changes so rapidly ongoing. So what you liked 3 years ago isn't what people like today, or what was useful 3 years ago may not be useful today. So there's definitely a lot of that in there. But yeah, I think the hard part about being a product owner is that you have to take feedback and then somehow decide, is this valuable or not valuable for what it is I want to come put into the product or have the product do, or what I want to come out of the product. And then second of all, how do I generalize this person's opinion or this person's suggestion so that it meets all customers' needs? And how do I even know what those all customer needs are? Like, those are all tough questions to ask. So the only reason that I was able to recognize that this guy's experience and opinion here were probably representative of everyone else's is that I was already looking at this page and I already noticed a lack of engagement and previous conversations I had had with other customers about, there were widgets on this dashboard, and I would ask them, well, what do you think about this? Oh, I never look at that page. Oh, well, what do you think about this? Oh, I don't really understand that, so I don't use it. But then that's all I hear from them, right? And then this guy that I talked to today, like, went in depth, like, I don't understand this graph. I don't see why this applies to my business. Why do I care about it? Why is it the first thing that I see here? It doesn't tell me one of my two key questions. How do I not lose customers? How do I make more money? Like, I don't understand what to interpret this here. I was like, oh, wow. Okay. So he was able to articulate more deeply than all of my other customers what really bugged him about this and why this didn't work for him. Now, I mean, there were some other things that, I know for a fact that our live cart feed is very engaging. I mean, I can tell you that by looking at Google Analytics. We have some of the highest retainment times on that page of anywhere. I would put my GA page view times against anybody else. Do you have a page on your website that people spend up to 20 minutes on?
No.
Yeah, I don't think most people do, but we do. And that's the live cart feed. So this guy was like, he was ripping me a new one about the live cart feed. And I'm like, okay. So, I explained to him what it was, why it was used, and how it's unique to Recapture. And really nobody else has this. And then he was like, oh, well, yeah, I don't know that that's really important to my business. I'm like, okay, that's fine. I understand that it's definitely not important to your business, but I know that it's important to many other merchants that are using Recapture. So that made me go, all right, his comments about this piece of it don't have the same kind of weight as he did on the dashboard, because I knew that I had contradictory evidence that said the opposite of what he was saying about it. So,
yeah.
But it's tough. I mean, you really have to know how people are using your app in order to really come up to those conclusions and not fall flat on your face.
100%. Yeah.
That's just tough.
Super interesting. Super interesting. Yeah. I mean, I'll just say that like, I have gotten some really harsh feedback both internally and externally in the past. And it's really hard to take because I take it personally, and I know I shouldn't, but I do.
Same.
And I think the key for me is being able to take it constructively. And so for me, that has to go through another person, and that's Francois on our team at least. right? Is like he can take it and digest it and decipher it and put it into a format which to me is constructive and helpful. And then they're like really being able to say a decent amount of the time, like, no, like, I'm sorry, like that you want this thing, but like, we're just not going to build it because that's only for 5% of our worst customer types. And that's not what we're optimizing for, And so like a lot of feedback that you get should be no to me.
Yeah. And in fact, last week, I ended up with a customer who's one of our really best customers, and they came in and they were like, hey, we want this complicated segmenting thing. And I talked with my tech lead, Mike, about it. And we both kind of came to the conclusion, yeah, this isn't right for recapture. Like it kind of violates our values, and it like they would be the only ones to benefit from it. And so it was an easy decision for me to kill it.
Or just say, yeah, that's custom development or sponsored development work, and it's $15,000 and we can do it in 2 months. And if that's the case, that's great.
Oh, I mean, we were way more harsh than that. We just said, no, not going to do it ever. No price tag on it. Fucks with the product outside of our values. It's not part of where we want to go with it. Done. Like, it's just not going to happen.
Good for you.
Yeah.
Good for you.
So yeah, having values makes a huge difference when you're going through these decisions, especially about product direction.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. For sure.
Mm-hmm.
You had a update about hiring or not hiring, I guess, too?
Yeah. Yeah. Unfortunately, it was about not hiring. So we were chatting with this guy, and, he seemed like he interviewed pretty well. I thought maybe he's the guy. And so then I brought him in for a technical interview, and Mike thought, yeah, maybe he's the guy. And then afterwards we were kind of like going over this. And the hard part was we can kind of only do a part-time thing right now. So, that makes it tough for somebody to come on full-time. If they're looking for full-time, we don't have full-time. So that, already becomes a bit of a Venn diagram overlap issue. But in this particular case, I asked him a question. I said, so on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being the most excited, how excited are you to come work for Recapture? He gave me a 7. And I'm like, oh, dude, okay, this is
not that bad.
Yeah, this is not a fit then. Like, I really want somebody with enthusiasm to show up and be like, I'm chomping at the bit. Can I have the docs early so I can get started? Like, that's the kind of person I want to work with. And he was not that person. There's nothing wrong with him or experience. He seemed to be pretty calm and level-headed, but we were going to be a second job for him. He was already working a full-time job. So, he's going to go from 8 hours a day to maybe 11 hours a day plus part of the weekend. Like, I don't know that, is that going to grind on him in 2 months and he's going to quit? Could be. We already had that experience once. So, I can understand if somebody like didn't like their full-time job and they were looking to get out of it, but needed to have that transition. So now they find something that they're really excited about, like a part-time gig.
Yep.
That would be a perfect fit, but this guy was not that perfect fit. So
yeah. Interesting.
Yeah. So
interesting.
The hiring continues.
Well, better to learn that now than 2 months into it when you're pulling your hair out and you have to fire somebody. So blessing in disguise.
Yeah, totally. So, hiring is hard, and finding the right people is hard, and making the tough calls is hard. But, I think he ended up agreeing like, yeah, this is probably not a good move for me either. All right, thanks. So no love lost and no hard feelings, but yeah, still working on that.
Wild. Mm-hmm. Wild. Well, good luck, man. I think the biggest update for me is like I've been doing a lot of sales activities recently, and it's a lot of work. It's a lot of fun. And I'm just trying very hard to stay focused on like the most important things. It's kind of like with the product stuff. It's like optimizing for bad fit customers. It's just such a trap, right? We could close this customer and they give us money, but ultimately they're just not the right fit. So like that's just really challenging. So like that's been kind of tough lately. Is just like figuring out how to optimize our sales process. I think we need to start qualifying leads to where I'm basically only or mostly getting on calls with really good fit customers. And that's a hard thing to do because you don't know always the best questions to ask on like an intake form or something to get that data in a genuine way, So yeah, that's been like a moving target, but pretty interesting. Yeah, and then I brought on an executive assistant. I don't know if I talked about this on the show. It's been a few weeks, and it's amazing, man. It's so amazing. She makes me so much more productive. Takes so much stuff like off my plate, and it's just so cool. Like I've been told by many advisors and friends, you just got to do this, do it. You should have done it last year, do it now. And I resisted, and I should have done it. And fucking everyone should do it. I hired her through Zirtual, and like they have plans starting at like $800 a month. And like, yeah, like it's just a no brainer. Like get $800 a month just to do less email is like a total win. And then like it's cascading from there to paying invoices and doing podcast bookings and doing sales admin stuff. And it's just like, it's awesome. I can imagine it being full-time pretty soon. So it's awesome.
Wow. All right. So
yeah,
I'm still struggling with this as well. On my great to-do list, that was very close to the top, and I haven't done that yet. So how did you define the tasks that you wanted to give to this person? And then like, what was that experience of the onboarding? And from there, like, at what level of trust do you have them right now? Do they do any payments? Do they have access to your credit cards? Obviously they're in your inbox and your calendars. Like, can you tell us a little bit more? I'm curious to know how deep this rabbit hole goes.
So I think like the first thing is the onboarding experience is a lot like training a customer support person to me, right? It's impossible to expect that they just jump in and start doing everything the first day. But like the very first thing was just like get Dan Martell's book and read on how he does email foldering, essentially, right? Mm-hmm. It's got like 5 tags or folders that things go into. And that was the first thing, right? And so we work on that for a week. And then we work on paying some bills, right? So yes, she has access to the credit card. She has access to like our TransferWise and PayPal. I haven't given her access to the bank account yet, but probably will with some like restrictions in place. And then like my thing is I document it once, and then like I never, ever, ever have to think about it again. Like this bill that comes in every month that I have to pay manually, I'm never going to pay that bill ever again because I fucking did a loom on it once and I sent it to her and said, Christina, next time this comes in, please just pay this. And like I just chip away at it like that. So like one thing at a time. And then like if I just delegate one thing and document it, and then ask her to write the documentation for it. Like I just flip on Loom and I'm like, hey, this is how I go through my email. And hey, can you create the playbook for how you go through email so that if you get hit by a bus, I could, have another Christina that does this. Then like it's a little bit of extra time one time for never having to do that thing ever again. And then we have a 30-minute call once a week just to talk through like priorities, but that's not like tasks. That's like strategic, like, hey, we're going to start doing this thing. And I tell her so that when I send her the Loom, she's not like, what the fuck is Craig talking about?
Wow. Okay. That is very concrete. I feel like I could actually execute on that, knowing, because, in my head, I'm sitting here procrastinating on this because I feel like I need to have this task list. And then for each item on that task list, I need to define an SOP. And then I'm sitting here thinking, oh God, okay, how many of these documents do I have to create? I've got a list of at least 16 things, and I'm like, 16 documents. That sounds like hell.
Yeah, I mean, I think that like the approach of like starting just a few hours a week takes a lot of the pressure off of you, right? Because like I started with her at 25 hours a month, I think. So like an hour a day, basically, an hour a work weekday. And that's not much, right? That's like organizing my email stuff, and doing a little bit of whatever. And so like you can document that over the course of a couple weeks to where that person is productive. And now like that's done. So I can do a little bit more documentation and delegation each week. So
okay.
Yeah,
okay.
Don't think you have to do it all at once.
All right. So stop trying to boil the ocean is what you're telling me.
Yeah. Yep. So it's been a really positive experience. But I was the same way. I think this might be part of the difference too. I've had VAs in the past, and this person is definitely like not a task person, but more like high level can like just say, part of it is like we're taking our team retreat, right? And so she's like, hey, so like I'll research restaurants, I'll research activities, I'll get you the 5 best hotel options, and then I'll put together the agenda and see what kind of activities the team wants to do. I'm like, fucking A, great. We're going to have a good retreat now. Instead of me saying, okay, please do this, and this is the criteria for what a good hotel looks like and stuff. It's like, I think there's a little bit of like, if you pay a little bit of extra money, you get a lot of context with the person, you know?
And she's US based, right?
She's US based.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that sounds deeply valuable. So,
and I think we've talked about this before, where like there is a time where paying more is worth it because you have to do less. And that's 100% the experience I'm having right now. You know?
Awesome. Yeah, that's
you pay $900 for a person in the Philippines, and nothing against people in the Philippines, right? Amazing. We have tons of people on the team from the Philippines, but like that's a like, hey, Craig, tell me what to do today experience, you know? And like, I think generally like college educated folks in the US, there's a huge generalization, but like can come to you and say like, hey, just tell me generally what you want to do, and I can run with it and get us like in the right neighborhood at least, you know?
Right. More self-motivating.
Yeah. And
independent
or oriented. Yeah. Orienting, you know, like directionality. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That makes sense. And I've had
Yeah.
that experience with a VA in the Philippines before. Very task oriented. She was very, very competent, but you know, when you ran out of the task, she would always come back to me and be like, what else do you want me to do? And I had to then define that thing well enough for her to go do it, as opposed to here's a general sentence, go run with that. Tell me where you get stuck. Like that wasn't something she was good at. So the utility was definitely a different experience. All right. Yeah. Maybe that's what I need.
And
to do.
here may be the ultimate hack unlock ever. I believe there could be a time where Christina manages a team of VAs in the Philippines.
Whoa.
It's just like time arbitrage, right?
Right. And
I say, hey, we want to do this big, huge thing, which, you know, is a lot of just grunt work for you, right? You write the SOPs, organize it, hire the person, and go do it. Totally possible, you know, and then she owns the outcome and understands what done is and good enough and everything. And you just say, go own the outcome of this thing, please.
That's amazing. Wow. Yeah. Love it.
So that's kind of the next step.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, my mind is blown right now, so I'm going to have to go and dig into this because I mean, that really changes.
Go sit
my
on the
thinking.
toilet for a while after that one, Dave.
Well, I was thinking about it from a very different perspective, in that I was going to have to define all of these things and bring on a VA and do this task-oriented stuff and say, all right, when you hit this time of the month, this is what you want to do for these invoices, and then do this affiliate stuff, and then do this, and blah, 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 blah. And that was stressing me out. And so this seems way more usable, way more workable.
Approachable. Yeah, totally.
Mm-hmm.
Totally. Yeah. And I mean, I'm fucking busy right now. So like, I don't have a lot of time to manage it either, which I think is huge, right? I think this is the other thing. If you have a ton of time and you can make those 11, SOP docs, then going for a more cost-effective route is worth it, right? If you don't, pay a little extra money for the person that takes that off your plate. That's
that's where I'm at. I don't have the time to do that and all the other things that I need to be getting done now. So,
Yep. Cool.
Love it.
So, if you've enjoyed this episode, please share it with someone who you think would enjoy it too. But no, honestly, like Dave and I, we do put a lot of effort into this, and I know my brain is kind of racked in the days coming up to our episodes thinking about what we're going to talk about. And I hope that we bring it every week and it's valuable and that you get a lot out of it and that you tell your friends. Because when folks give us shout outs on Twitter, thank you, Jesse, it really makes our day and makes us want to come back and really kill it here. So thank you all for sticking with us. And I hope that you're enjoying it. And if there's anything that you want to hear Dave and I talk about that we haven't talked about recently, at least, let us know.
Totally. And until next time, you know what to do. Share the episode with somebody you'd like or leave us a review on iTunes. We'd appreciate both. Take care until next episode.
Thanks for listening to another episode of Rogue Startups. If you haven't already, head over to iTunes and leave a rating and review for the show. For show notes from each episode and a few extra resources to help you along your journey, head over to roguestartups.com to learn more.